Welcome. User experience, or UX, can sometimes feel a little fuzzy, right? A bit of a buzzword. Well, today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going to move from theory to a real, practical playbook you can actually use to make your team and your product a whole lot better. So let's dive in.
So, let's start with a really common question, one you've probably heard a million times. Is UX just about making things pretty? Choosing the right colors, the perfect font, making the screens look good? It's a huge misconception, and honestly, it misses the entire point of what makes UX so powerful.
The real answer is so much bigger than that. The best way to think about it is this. UX is the glue. It's the thing that holds everything together. It connects the goals of the business, the technical realities of engineering, and, most importantly, the needs of the actual human beings who are going to use your product. It's all about making sure we're building for people.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to map out the entire UX lifecycle, from start to finish. Then, we'll look at how UX actually works with other teams, because it's a team sport. After that, we get super practical with a one-week test plan for getting feedback fast. We'll talk about how to do that without sacrificing quality, and then we'll wrap it all up with the key things you need to remember.
All right, first up, the UX lifecycle. And this is so important to get right. Great UX isn't just one step in a process. It's not a checkbox you just tick off and say done. It is an end-to-end journey that's part of every single stage of a product's life.
And this is what that journey looks like. It all kicks off with discovery, figuring out what we're even trying to achieve. From there, we dive into research, which is all about understanding our users' real problems. Once we have those insights, then we can get creative with ideation and design, building out potential solutions. After it's built during implementation, the journey still isn't over. That's where iteration comes in, learning from how people are actually using the product and making it better. It's a continuous loop, always improving.
But here's the thing. That whole life cycle, nobody does that alone. It's not a solo mission. UX designers and researchers don't just sit in a dark room and come up with ideas. Their success, and the product's success, depends completely on how well they work with everyone else. So let's talk about those partnerships.
Okay, let's start with the product manager. The PM brings the business goals to the table, the what we need to build and why it matters. In return, UX brings the human context. So say a PM wants to add 5 new features to stay competitive. UX might go out, talk to users, and come back with hard evidence that says, hey, people are actually just confused by one of our old features, and if we just fix that, they'll be way happier. That kind of research helps the PM make smarter, more impactful decisions.
And then, we have the partnership with engineering, which is just absolutely critical. UX needs to know what's actually possible to build. What are the technical limits? How will this fancy animation affect performance? And in exchange, UX gives the engineers super clear designs and specs so they're not guessing. It's this constant back and forth between the big vision and the practical reality.
So, what's the secret to making all this collaboration work? Well, it's not magic. It's just good process. It's about having shared documents that everyone can see and contribute to. It's about being really clear on who gets to make the final call on a decision. And, maybe most importantly, it's about bringing engineers and PMs into the conversation early, not just handing them a finished design at the very end and saying, here, go build this. Okay, all of that sounds great, right? But I know what you might be thinking. It also sounds kinda slow. What if you don't have months for research? What if you need answers now? This is where we shift from theory into pure practice. Let's walk through a concrete plan for getting incredibly valuable user feedback in just 1 week. This is what's called the Rapid Evaluation Method, or REM, and as you can see, it's a tight ship. Day 1, you start with your own internal experts. By day 3, you're already in front of real users. And look at this. By Friday, you're not just looking at a report, you're actually shipping quick fixes with your team. The goal here isn't to find every single tiny issue. It's to make real, tangible progress really, really fast.
So what did I mean by expert inspections on day 1? Well, one of them is a heuristic evaluation. The best analogy is to think of a building inspector checking a house. A UX expert uses a standard checklist of usability principles, we call them heuristics, to quickly spot common problems. Things like, is the system giving clear feedback, or is the navigation consistent? It's a super fast way to find low-hanging fruit.
The other expert method is a cognitive walkthrough. For this, the expert basically puts on their new user hat. They pretend they've never seen the app before and try to complete a critical task, like buying a product. At every single step, they're asking, would a new user know what to do here? Is this button confusing? It's an amazing way to find spots where people are likely to get stuck or confused.
Okay, I can hear you now. A 1-week plan? That sounds almost too good to be true. Can I really trust the results I get that quickly? That is an excellent and very fair question. And the answer is a big yes, but only if you follow a few key principles to make sure that speed doesn't come at the cost of reliability. It all starts with a number that, I'm not going to lie, might sound shockingly small. For the user testing part of this plan, you often only need about 5 to 8 people. And you might be thinking, how on earth is that enough?
Well, it turns out there's some incredible research on this. The Nielsen-Norman Group, who are basically the pioneers of this field, discovered that with just 5 users, you can find more than 80% of the major usability problems. After that, you start seeing the same issues over and over. So the goal isn't to find every little thing, it's to find the biggest, most painful problems fast. And 5 users is the sweet spot for that.
So this is how you make it all reliable. The key is to triangulate. That just means you never rely on only one source of information. You combine your expert reviews, your user tests, and any data or analytics you have. The expert reviews give you breadth. They find a lot of potential problems. But the user tests give you depth. They confirm which of those problems are actually causing real pain for people. When you put them all together, you get a really clear picture.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground here, from the big picture philosophy of UX all the way down to a day-by-day plan. So let's bring it all home and lock in the most important things to take away from all this.
First, UX is not a one-and-done thing. It's a continuous collaborative process. Second, always remember that UX is the glue that connects your business, your technology, and your users. Third, you don't always need months to get answers. That 1-week rapid method is a ridiculously powerful tool. And finally, the key to making that speed work is to balance it by combining different methods, like expert reviews and user testing. So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. With all this in mind, what is one tiny, manageable step your team could take this week, like starting tomorrow, to get just a little bit closer to your users? It could be as simple as listening to one customer support recording. Because that one small step, that's where this whole journey really begins. Thanks for tuning in.